My parents snuck away my real identity, and now I've learned I'm set to inherit an amazingly huge lot of money. My life was pretty mundane, almost unbearably so. I lived in a tiny house located in a small town with two parents that both worked ordinary jobs. My dad owned a tiny mechanic shop that was barely able to break even, while my mom was a teacher at a local elementary school. We weren't poor, but we were never well off. There certainly wasn't money for any extravagant gifts or vacations. Or at least that is what I was led to believe. I was perfectly fine accepting my life and never bothered to question the ever-so-dull reality. My parents, David and Linda, were kind, caring, and perpetually supportive while always dedicating time to stress the value of hard work. I worked part-time jobs throughout my college years and high school to earn enough to pay for living expenses and tuition. My parents weren't in a position to help much, which is perfectly fine because I didn't expect them to. When I think back to how things were, it all felt so ordinary, almost painfully so. Life has an odd way of altering paths when one least expects it. Such was the unfortunate reality of everything that took place a few weeks after my 25th birthday. It was a Tuesday, not very different from any other day, and I had just finished paying a visit to my parents' house. It was one of those regular trips that included helping my father fix various things around the house, or sometimes even just sharing dinner. But for some reason, this day felt different. Different in a rather unpleasant sort of manner. For some time now, my mother had been acting rather odd. Whenever I asked if everything was fine, her responses were vague, with most of her replies consisting of one-word answers. Even my father's stoic demeanor seemed even more detached than normal. All of this put a cloud of doubt over my head, but I never bothered to pay too much attention to it. That was until I paid them a visit. No matter how much I tried to avoid it, I could feel the uncomfortable tension in the room slice through the air. Once I had engaged in what I can only describe as merciless rounds of attempting to make small talk, my mother seemingly snapped out of her daze. With her eyes fixated on my father, and him meeting her gaze, my mother was finally ready to set everything in motion. "Liam, we need to talk to you about something," she finished while letting a sigh of what felt like relief out. The shaky tone of her voice made it clear to me that my gut feeling had been spot on. My gaze went from one person to the other as I frowned. "What's the deal? You two have been so off for weeks by now." My dad rubbed his forehead before leaning toward me. "There is something we should tell you, but we didn't think you'd ever need to know. But it's time now." I did not understand what they were about to tell me, but their expressions made it pretty obvious that whatever it was would fundamentally change everything. It was something massive. "You're not my real parents," my mom stated, her words barely above a whisper. I didn't think what kind of an answer I might have gotten from the question I asked my mom, but her response, "We adopted you when you were a baby," made me freeze. "What?" I said, mesmerized. Mom reached to me as my gaze shifted away from her. "I loved you as my own when you were born and never wanted you to feel different. And the reason why is because the truth is," she said before pausing to gather herself, "you come from a different family." Full of disbelief, I inhaled deeply before shouting, "What do you mean?" I pulled my hand away, instantly standing up, which left me feeling exposed and angry all at once. It was so clear to me now why she never said anything before. My father too got up from his sitting position, and I could see regret unfold on my father's face as he began to say, "We have always wanted to protect you just like we were trying to do with you. It was not until, well, you do have a biological family, and things are complicated with them. It is much safer for you to have been brought up distant from them." The things I was just coming to understand created mixed thoughts within me. This fully explained to me why everything I knew up to now in my life was built on a facade. None of it was true. Then who are they? I reasoned in shock. My true parents. I barely managed to whisper. "Ever so powerful," my father let out after having an almost revealing glance at Mom. "Your family can be the most powerful of them all because they are. Your father, your true father, happens to be one of the richest people in the nation. But there was the tension in the family. Disagreements. Your father at the time did not want you to live in the family's shadow, so he planned to have us adopt you. I can hardly breathe, but I have to understand the picture he is painting. My real father had given me a way to protect me from a world I had never known. Why me now? So, why are you telling me this now?" The first thing my brother did when I got back was hug me tightly. Mom wiped a tear away as confusion poured over him. "Because he's gone, Liam. Your biological father passed away a few weeks ago." I interjected to release some of my emotions, and, fighting tears streaming down, "He left everything to you." Those words had me and my brother crashed in like a freight train, confusion evaporating, frustration growing. "He left everything to me." Why though? Why would he do that? I didn't even know this man, and somehow I was his puppet. To this day, I can't comprehend. "What do you mean, he left everything to me?" "He was trying to protect you. I don't see how that changes things," my dad explained. "He didn't want you deluded into the family business, the wealth, and all complications that came with being a Freeman. That is why he made sure you were adopted by us, but now." The moment grandparents and Uncle Emeritus Witness opened the attic, They transformed from trustworthy figures to blameless demons. The old, sturdy oaken doors seal all blames against the family. Rest of the day, he paused. Everything to you. His estate, his fortune, it is all yours, she said as if it were the most mundane thing in the world. My blood felt electric, but my mind was spinning, and I felt like I was about to faint. What is the next step exactly? I stammered, struggling to keep my balance. There is still more, my mom said as she tilted her head. The trustees of his estate have been trying to get a hold of you. They want to meet, to show you the life you were born into. I could not grasp all of my thoughts simultaneously. The world I had never known became a reality. Was I living a surrealist fantasy where I was a secret fortune heir? It certainly seemed that way. I can't believe this, I said, taking a deep breath and ruffling my hair. You've never mentioned this at any point. We didn't want you to be sucked into that life, my mom said, regret lacing her voice. We wanted you to have a normal childhood, a standard life. Unfortunately, things are not as simple now. You have a choice to make. In a daze, those next few days flew by. I did not sleep much as my mind tried to piece together the questions surrounding my existence. My blood family, my biological father, the life I was completely cut off from. I learned that the name of my real father was Robert Warren, a man who had dominated the world of business and finance for decades. His name was a staple. He was incredibly wealthy, miles ahead of what I had conceptualized. An empire had been established, and now that I had ascribed the titles to my father, I had become the owner of an empire. But together with the money came responsibility, complicated factors, and a past that was deeply hidden. Other than my parents, I had no clue who the rest of my biological family was, and now that I had everything, I was not sure what they wanted from me. They always said that there were disagreements within the family, but never went further. What disagreements might those be? And what motivated my father, who had never met me, to will everything to me? I was well aware that it had to be confronted. The estate's lawyers had already contacted me, and I knew the day would come when I would need to confront the reality of who I was. Therefore, I resolved to have a talk with them. When I arrived at the meeting, it seemed to me that I was stepping into a different reality, one which I had not been introduced to until now. The law firm made itself comfortable in a sophisticated glass skyscraper, the type of building typical for the city center where a lot of money and influence is concentrated. At no other point in my life had I felt more uncomfortable than in that waiting room. It was filled with people sporting expensive suits and watches which, combined, were most likely worth an amount greater than what I would need to complete my schooling. At long last, the receptionist called out my name, so I was taken to a sleek modern conference room where two lawyers were seated. One of them, Mr. Daniels, rose to his feet and offered his palm for a handshake. "Liam, we appreciate your presence here," he said, with the look in his eyes of a professional but wealthy businessman. "You heard correct. We have been waiting for you." I shook his hand. I have to admit, I still felt completely out of the loop. I'm not certain where I should begin. Mr. Daniels grinned at me. "That's understandable. This is a lot to take in, but we'd like to assist you in figuring out everything. Your father possessed some specific details regarding the portion of money, or should I say wealth, you possess, and during the time of his passing, he had detailed instructions for you, and on behalf of him, we are here to guide you." I nodded, even now struggling to understand that at this point I was situated in a law firm and was going to get an inheritance that was a surprising fortune. "As you know," Mr. Daniels stated, "your father was a very successful man and his estate is quite large.